financial statements of an applicant for economic development assistance involving public infrastructure
Dagger law has
improvements
been
or
part of the Lancaster
the
community.
extension of utility service that are directly related to the economic development project, and that this executive session is necessary to protect the interests of the applicant or the possible investment or expenditures of public funds to be made in connection with the economic development project pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22G8. This executive session should include the following: Finance Chairman, members of the Finance Committee, Council President, Council members, Law Director, Mayor, Auditor, Service Safety Director, Treasurer, and LPA Economic Development Director.
We have a motion and a second to convene into executive session. I need a roll call. Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
I too vote yes. We are officially in executive session.
You read that so well.
of business.
We have a motion and a second to return to the regular order of business. I do need a roll call. Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz? Yes. I also vote yes. We are back to the regular order of business. Thank you for that. Mr. President, quick question for you.
Yes, sir.
I suspect you would like to clear the deck of all legislation tonight. Is that a true statement?
That is a true statement, Mr. Chairman.
So, it probably means we're going to push some things forward. So really, folks that are sponsors of legislation, let's try to get the docket clean. So when we come back in, 3 weeks, I guess? Hopefully we don't have much to do, and then we have a 4-week break from that point on. So if we could clear the docket for Mr. President, that'd be a good thing. So moving on. First item I have on tonight's agenda is Resolution 8321. That is a resolution to appropriate from the General Fund 101 for legal services. This is $2,000 coming through the general fund. Service Safety Director, want to talk about that, or Randall, or Law Director Olam?
I'm sorry, I apologize.
It's for that utility, the tract of land that has utilities on it that no one seems to know who owns it.
Oh, yes, this is just, this is a situation where we've got some canal lands involved, and then we've got what nearest we can figure is a remnant tract that probably got created when the canal lands, when the state took the land for the canal lands years and years ago. So this is something where we've got some utilities or whatever in that area, and when it came to our attention, it looked like the city utility companies or whatever would, like us to basically get control of that land or maintain control of that land if we can. So the canal lands, we can go through a process with the state of Ohio to basically have that deeded over to the city. The remnant piece, we're probably going to have to do some sort of quiet title action or whatever on it, just to, basically acquire that. So the utility companies, when we met, or with our city utility folks, would like to kind of go in together on this or whatever, and get some outside legal assistance if we need it to acquire all that property.
Well, a couple things. I'm a little surprised it's a $2,000 appropriation in the general fund for legal services. Not necessarily, is it your department?
So I could speak to that.
I was just going to say, it's my
Yeah.
understanding some utility companies already have the money to appropriate it and didn't need to come to council. I think these are just the ones that actually didn't have any money in a line item and needed some authorization.
So it's,
Is that right?
everyone's throwing money in the pot to pay the bill?
This is not the total bill.
That's correct.
Okay.
Correct.
That's
I've already got other funds that are required for this, and we're just estimating.
Okay, no, that's fine.
So, yeah.
All right, now that makes sense when you're talking about all the other utilities. All right. Any questions on this, folks? We're going to ask for suspension tonight. Mrs. Bobbitt, would you second this, please?
I will.
All right, so we'll go suspension on 8321. Thank you for that update. Next item I have is 8421. That's a resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into an agreement for a rate study of water and wastewater rates, capacity fees, and septic receiving fees. This is coming through water pollution. Mr. James.
Yes, I'd like to yield some time to Superintendent Nixon to give us a little idea of why we want to do this.
Yes, members of council, temporary resolution 8421 authorizes the Service Safety Director to enter into an agreement for a rate study. As Councilman Stoughton said, this is both for the water utility and the wastewater utility, not only on the rates and charges for the monthly consumption, but also the sewer capacity fees that are one-time fees from new builds in the city, as well as our septic receiving rates. With the upgrades to all the treatment plants, as well as the additional water and sewer projects, we need to evaluate our rates and project the need for future increases if necessary. And this is important as we go out for funding for these projects. The Ohio EPA, as part of their approval for any funding, will want to make sure we have the means in which to repay any debt that we have to incur. The water rates were last changed in 2019, and I can tell you through May of this year, we were in the black, $53.84, I believe. So or cutting it really close.
Don't spend that all in one place.
Yes. So that was tight. And then our wastewater rates have not increased since 2017, and the water and sewer capacity fees have not increased since 2007. So it's been a while, and rather than just raise the rates without any rhyme or reason, we use a firm. The firm we'll be using is a subsidiary of Arcadis. It's Red Oak. They're an accounting firm that works with Arcadis. They've done our rate studies in the past, so they're not recreating the wheel. So they already have a lot of our data. On the sewer side, they helped us when we did the combined sewer overflow funding to do our affordability study that we submitted to Ohio EPA. So again, they have a lot of knowledge, and we've been working with them to get the scope, and we hope if we can get started soon, they can have this completed by fall, and then that should line up with any of our borrowing needs that we may have for future projects.
Okay.
All right, questions for Mr. Nixon? With your timing and your second, please, Mr.
Becky Teener will hopefully second this, and we'd like to ask for suspension tonight.
Very good. So we'll ask for suspension on 8421. The next item I have on tonight's agenda is 8521. Your legislation says water pollution. It's actually economic development. This is a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into agreements to facilitate Project Ruby in furtherance of economic development. This is coming to the Economic Development Committee. Mr. McDaniel.
Yeah, this is an item that we've discussed in a little bit of detail. Fairly straightforward. It will allow the mayor to enter into agreements to move Project Ruby forward. I'm going to ask for suspension, and Mrs. Kreitz is the second on that.
Any questions on this piece? Not uncommon for us to give the mayor that authority when getting to the finish line of economic development opportunities. Seeing none, we will ask for suspension on 8521. Thank you, sir. Next item I have on tonight's agenda is Resolution 8621. That's a resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into a contract for construction of the South Water Plant Concentrate Line Improvement Project. This is coming through water pollution. Mr. James.
Yes, once again, I'd like to yield some time to Superintendent Nixon to give us a little more detail.
As members of the council, we keep hearing about the infamous concentrate line.
Yeah.
We started out thinking we're having a problem getting the amount of flow necessary from the South Water Treatment Plant 4 miles back to Maple and Canal Street. The initial idea was to pig it. We were going to do that project, and as the quotes came in, a $600,000 job turned into about $1 million job. So we thought we needed to do a little more digging and figure out what was going on in this 4 miles of main, and not get into a project, spend a lot of money, and not accomplish anything. So we had sent to come back to council and had Rock River, a local contractor, expose 4 or 5 spots on the line, excavate the line, tap the line, and take pressure readings, and also do a little bit of a core to see how much material's in the line. What we've ended up finding is there's one spot not too far from the plant and before the river that is nearly plugged off. So what we're proposing to do now, and we've put proposals out. We had four or five excavating firms that we sent a proposal out to, and we only had one return a price for us. And that made us still a little nervous of what we're doing now. Late last week, we got a hold of actually a cleaning company. Before it was an excavating company who would sub out the cleaning. Now we're looking at a cleaning company who would sub out the excavating to see what their price would look like, and hopefully we get that back soon. But right now, we're hoping that this doesn't exceed $100,000, and we can get in. We'll cut into the pipe. We will try to clean. We'll see how hardened that material is. Try to clean the pipe both directions. Essentially, what we have now is a 14-inch pipe with about an inch of an opening, so it's basically valved almost shut. As a result, we're getting very high pressures and low flows. So This is still kind of exploratory. We're not gonna know until we actually get into the pipe. There's no way to video, put a camera in it. So until we actually cut it open, clean it, and see what we have, that could lead to more work, but it's not going to lead anywhere to the $600,000 to $1 million job that we started out with. So unfortunately, we hate this punt and try again type mentality, but we don't want to jump into a big project and not have it accomplish what it needs to accomplish. So we're taking it in baby steps right now.
Okay, questions for Mr. Nixon? Yes, Mrs. Bobbitt?
And I apologize, I should have called you today at your work.
Mhm.
You say 4 miles. $1 million for the pigging is very, very expensive.
Oh, yeah.
How many different companies did we get, that could maybe do the pigging?
Well, there aren't very many companies that can do that type of pigging. And there's a lot of risk involved, because in that 4 miles, it goes under the river several times. And if the pig that they launch, it's a device they launch through that pipe, and it's called a pig. If it gets stuck, then you have to excavate and cut into the pipe and remove the pig. And since Murphy lives in Lancaster, Murphy's law would be it would get stuck under
Yeah.
the river.
Under the river.
So,
Yeah.
so we're trying to be digging in the river. So, it's large companies, most of them do gas type pigging. So there's just not, we got a hold of the, 3 biggest we knew, and those were the prices that we were getting from them, the estimates we were getting to do the type of work. So, when we get into a project, we understand, especially in the division water right now, money's tight, so we're looking for the best value. Sometimes low price is not best bid, too. So we have to make sure we go with quality contractors who are capable of doing this. We don't want to hire the guy who's going to do this for the first time. We had that experience years ago with them trying to do a directional drill under the new bypass, and they got part of the way and couldn't finish, and we had to bring somebody else in. And that's about the same time as the South Water Plant, so we tightened up our legal documents, we tightened up our specifications, and so now when we look at this, we want to make sure we have qualifications of these contractors too. So we got legitimate contractors, and those were the prices. So that's a lot of money, but there's a huge amount of risk, and it had to be done because we can't have the South Plant down for a short or a long period of time. It had to be done where people were working around the clock for 4 or 5 days. And that adds to the price too, when you have people working,
Sure.
firms working 24 hours a day trying to get that done, because it's not a quick process. You don't put the biggest pig in the first time. You launch a smaller one through first and see if it makes it. And then you're tracking it, and you can tell where it loses velocity, and you can tell where there might be problems. And then you put a little bit bigger one in, and then you put the ultimate size pig in to clean the scale off the line. But if this stuff is cemented, like sometimes the iron and manganese does, with anytime you add an oxidant, whether it's permanganate or chlorine, it's amazing that those minerals can turn into almost cement.
Yeah.
And if it's loose, fluffy material, the pig is gonna get right through it. But if it hits that cemented material, it's stuck, and we're digging.
Yeah.
So that's why we wanna get in and dig this stuff and see what we're dealing with. It feels hard as we're probing it, so that's not encouraging.
Thank you.
Further questions? I just have one, Mike. So what causes this to accumulate? And why does it accumulate, in certain places, and some places it doesn't?
Those are good questions. This is called the concentrate line, so all of the waste material that we've removed in water, the waste material are the minerals. So it's mainly iron and manganese and calcium. That material that we're removing from the water before we put it out in the distribution system is going into this pipeline. Unfortunately, with the rates of flow that we had, if you want to clean a sewer, keep a sewer clean, you need about 2 feet per second velocity to keep things moving. We had less than less than a half a foot per second velocity. So that's why it didn't travel very far up the line, because there wasn't enough velocity to keep the material in suspension. So it ended up dropping out, settling out, and then the plant's been running since 2004. So as of now, 2021, it's starting to rear its ugly head and trying to figure out that many years of accumulation in that pipe. So it's, again, what we'll end up finding, I think, is just cemented iron and manganese and calcium. And again, it gets cemented because we add material, whether it's chlorine or permanganate, to oxidize those materials, so it removes them from the process, so we get less of it in our drinking water and lowers
So
the hardness.
you've created another question.
Mhm.
So after we clean this out, how do we prevent it? How do we get the flow to the right rate so it doesn't happen again?
Another good question. It'll help as we're increasing the capacity of the plant. We've been for years running one skid, producing 2.5 million gallons a day out of that plant. We've got the second skid loaded. Well, we'd like to go up to the 4 to 5 million gallons a day out of that plant. Right now, we can't, because when we try to backwash with the second skid on, the pressures get too high.
Yeah.
And kick the membrane skids out. So what we're gonna look at is, once we get it clean, we're going to put a pigging station in where we cut it, and then have multiple pigging stations up the line, so in the future, it can be maintained and not get to where we are today after 20 years, 18 years, whatever.
It's almost like you anticipated that question.
Yeah.
Yes, it did.
Well, we like to try and think things
Sure,
through.
sure. All right. Well, I have no further questions. Anyone have any follow-ups? All right, what's your pleasure, Mr. James?
One reading, and Councilman Hall will be my second.
All right. Thank you, Mike. Good information. So we will suspend on 8621. Next item on our agenda are departmental updates. Do we have any departmental updates? I see Mr. Wellstead racing to the podium. Hello, Stephen.
Good evening, everybody. I just wanted to provide a quick update on the Wiley Road Water Loop project. As you may recall, this is an upcoming project we have will involve the construction of a water line underneath US 33 bypass to connect the dead-end lines on Rural Park Avenue and Magna Avenue. Anyways, I just want to let everyone know that we're conducting a limited environmental review in-house for that project, since there are federal, the ARPA funds that are going to be used on this project. This review basically looks at potential environmental impacts on the project. We don't believe there should be any issues of concern environmentally, because the project is in the US 33 corridor, which would have gone through this process back in the early 2000s when it was constructed. So anyways, we're going to be wrapping up our review this week and plan to have the document posted on our website by July 1st for a 30-day comment period. So I just want to let everybody know that we'll be up there for review, and if there are any comments, they can feel free to send them to the Stormwater Department. We'll have contact information up there, my email and whatnot, so anything can come in if there are any questions or concerns about it. Thank you.
Questions for Stephen? Very good. Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank
the update. Mr. Nixon.
One more time. I wanted to let City Council know that at the July 19th meeting, we'll be introducing a redemption ordinance of the 2012 wastewater system revenue refunding bonds. This legislation will authorize the city to call and redeem the outstanding 2012 wastewater bonds on December 31st, 2021, in the amount of approximately $2.1 million. Funds are available in the wastewater reserve fund to pay for this call, and we have to have the appropriate, we'll have an appropriation resolution later this fall once we know the exact number. We need to, by the bond covenants, have this ordinance, and the reasons we're doing it is we're paying 5% interest on these bonds, and as you know, we're borrowing money for these future projects currently at under 1%. So we want to make sure we get these bonds paid off, and if we have to borrow money, we'll borrow it at the lower interest rate. So I just wanted to make you aware that if we can introduce this on the 19th and then pass it August 9th, then we'll be able to meet our bond covenants and make this call at the end of the year.
Questions for Mr. Nixon? Sounds like a good idea. Thank you. Further departmental updates. Chief Maffin.
Good evening. I just wanted to make sure everybody's on the same page from the email I sent, mainly to the safety committee a week or two ago about ordering another truck. When we were talking in City Hall about it, kind of got on the track of everybody thought that I was talking about the truck that we just ordered. And I just want to make sure that everybody's aware that this is a fourth or the second new truck order that the numbers I was talking about. So before any of that really gets out of hand.
You're talking about a second medic?
Yeah, so we ordered, 3 weeks ago, I finally sent in the contract to order new Medic 3, which is our normal replacement schedule. And we already had planned to, at the first of the year, order Medic 4 for when we get the staffing up to put that truck in service. The email I sent out was that Horton, our manufacturer, said that they are increasing pricing 5% across the board July 1st. And if we can get specs in for that truck before August 31st, then they will honor the current pricing. So it'll be priced essentially the same as the truck we just ordered. And with the lead out of almost a year from the time of order to time of possession, we were looking at just going ahead and ordering this truck now. We don't have to pay for it until we take delivery of it.
The only confusion I had is I thought the last truck we ordered, or last medic, was the fourth medic and not the replacement medic, so. my
No,
time-
the one we just ordered is the normally scheduled replacement for Medic 3.
Okay, well, I mean, I have no problem with that, obviously. So we'll see legislation, I assume, coming, or do we
Next
need
month.
legislation to buy?
Next month.
Okay.
Yes, July.
And we'll have 2 meetings in August to pass it. I mean, I don't think there's any issue with doing that. We won't pay for it until next year anyway, or start paying for it.
Okay.
Yes,
So we're probably gonna have to do bonds on that again?
No.
Or some kind of, like we did the other?
So I've asked the mayor to talk with Tom Stoughton and Jen and go how we're gonna finance it.
That's fine, I just
So
wanted
we're
to make
looking at
sure
trying
because
to
in
fund
case
it.
we had to reach out to Ms. Binkley to have her prepare it, it takes a little longer, so. Okay.
I've already met with Tricia and we've already had some meetings on it.
okay, so apparently we're gonna have a funding discussion. So let's have the funding discussion. What's up?
Well, I was, as the mayor just got back from his vacation in Mexico, I just said maybe have some conversation of what funds we would take it to pay for it completely upfront without a loan, is what we're looking at. So we can, that's why we didn't introduce the legislation tonight. We need to figure out how we're gonna pay for that in the future. So
Okay, I'd be
that's-
interested when you guys wanna have that discussion, we can schedule some time and have a discussion. All right, perfect. Thank you. Anything else?
Well, so in somewhat related news, we're still working on hiring. Our latest test, we pulled the first 10 names. We're starting on the background process. We've got a couple in for their second interview this week. The next step for them will be, Gretchen will get with them as far as their after their offer testing for the psych eval, the pension physical, and the polygraph. It's kind of somewhat of a painfully slow process, but we're working to move through the names to get people on board as quick as possible.
I have a question. Have you lost anybody?
We have lost one that resigned and went to another fire department, Central Ohio. We've got 3 in process from the last test still. We would have had 5, but one kind of backed out of the process and the other went to another department, Central Ohio.
I mean, I'm sure you, I know you're struggling,
It's-
so
It's 2 steps forward and 1 step back.
certainly.
That's all the time. Last thing I have, anybody else have any questions about hiring?
The one
Or-
who,
I'm sorry.
the one who left, was that somebody who had many years of service, or was that somebody that you had just hired?
No, he had been here 14 or 15 years.
And why did he, if I may ask, did he leave because of pay?
I'm sure that was part of it, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Did they go north?
Yep.
That tells you.
They don't go south.
Huh?
They don't go south.
No, it goes south.
No, they don't
I
go
know you were
south
looking at
very
me like,
often.
hey, Captain Obvious, right?
Yeah.
Thanks for that, Don.
And last thing on my list, we'll be going out for EMS billing again this fall. The chief has updated the RFQ. I think that's been sent to the law director's office. As soon as it comes back from there, we'll be bringing that to council for approval and then get that sent out so we can start that lengthy process, probably early fall.
Dumb question, is our billing just flat to last year?
So we actually we had a Zoom meeting with our billing representative this afternoon, and so far the collections are flat, but because of the run volume, they're expecting about a 30% uptick in getting the billing sent out. What that means as far as collections, we're a little bit ahead of this point last year, and had I thought I was going to need more of that information, I would have printed some things before I left my office.
No, I just know that our numbers year over year just seem to,
Go up and down.
yeah, it's just, yeah, that's right. It's like a,
Yeah, according to our rep from the company, we are almost even with early 2019 numbers, and which means we're somewhat ahead of 2020.
okay.
1.3 usually.
Yes, Mrs. Bobbitt.
How many companies will you be sending the RFP to? I mean, how many companies do this billing?
There's quite a few that specialize in EMS billing. Honestly, I'm not familiar with how we get a hold of. We've been contacted by two, just by our generic distribution email, and we've taken their information so we can send them the information once it's approved. Beyond that, I really don't know. I think we advertise, and then we'll send the information to those who request it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Other questions?
Other information, other questions for the chief? Very good.
All right.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Any other departmental updates? Seeing none, I'll now pass it over to President Uhl for tonight's meeting prep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we took care of everything at the front end of the meeting. We're going to work to clear everything out today. Just as a reminder, we will work to table temporary ordinance 1721, and I think that's it. So I'll pass it back to the chairman.
Any other items for finance? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn?
Second.
And we are adjourned from finance. It is 6:47.
The regular meeting of Lancaster City Council will begin at 6:55.
Dagger Law has been part of the Lancaster community for more than 110 years. This is where we live and work. You'll see us at festivals, sporting events, and all around town. We consider our clients as friends, and we walk alongside you through challenging times. Whether you're a growing business, a changing family, facing litigation, planning your future, or dealing with land issues, we're right here. We are local. We are trusted. We are experienced. Dagger Law.
There is no place like Lancaster, Ohio, and Fairfield County, and like you, I am proud to call them home. As a longtime resident of Lancaster and graduate of Lancaster High School, this community is important to me, and I want to provide superior customer service, professionalism, integrity, and honesty at the Connor Insurance Agency. I am committed to supporting local programs and projects through my volunteer work and board membership with several organizations. It has been a great honor to work with all the first responders throughout Lancaster, Fairfield County, and the state of Ohio to put on Kids and Cops Day, to be a part of Shop with a Cop alongside the Lancaster Police Department and JFS, and to help Lancaster Public Education Foundation raise funds to support our local public schools and teachers. These men and women work hard to protect and support our community, and I would like to take this moment to say thank you for all they do. My goal as a business owner and insurance agent is to provide my clients with the most appropriate services and coverage for their needs at a competitive rate. As an independent agent, I have several carriers to choose from, so I can customize your insurance coverage to fit your needs and desires. I strive to make sure there are no gaps in your coverage that could be harmful, and just as important, that you are not overinsured. I look forward to serving your insurance needs now and in the future. At Connor Insurance, we are here to serve you by protecting what is important to you. Please contact my office at 740-654-2848 for a full list of services and carriers, or visit my website, ConnorInsuranceAgency.com.
The Frankie Smith Funeral Home and Crematory in Lancaster and the Johnson Smith Funeral Home in Baltimore have a long and wonderful history of serving our community. Feel free to give us a call at 740-653-0652. Stop in and see us at either of our two locations, 405 North Columbus Street in Lancaster and 207 South Main Street in Baltimore. Respect for tradition, regard for change.
Good evening. Welcome to Lancaster City Council. Please join me in a word of prayer. Father, we are thankful for this day and your blessings, thankful for all that you do for us as we approach the 4th of July and remember and consider and celebrate our independence and freedom. We are thankful for the many, many men and women who have served and who have sacrificed their lives so that we can enjoy the very liberties that we have today. Will you continue to be with us? Bless the city, our employees, our first responders, and may you be with this council as we go about the work set before us today. We pray in your son's name. Amen.
Amen.
I hereby call this meeting of Lancaster City Council to order. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt.
Here.
Mrs. Kreitz. Here. Mr. Hall.
Here.
Mr. James.
Here.
Mr. Matlin.
Here.
Mr. McDaniel.
Here.
Mr. Schoonover.
Here.
Mr. Stoughton. Here. And Mrs. Teener.
Here.
Let the record reflect that all 9 members of Lancaster City Council are in attendance this evening. Reading and disposing of the journal.
I'd like to present the regular meeting minutes dated June 14th, 2021.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the journal.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to receive and file the journal. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Reports of city officials.
Email dated June 22nd, 2021 regarding the public records request submitted by President Uhl. Email dated June 22nd regarding 2021 regarding the public records request submitted by Mr. Stoughton. Email dated June 22nd, 2021 regarding public records request submitted by Mr. McDaniel. Email dated June 23rd, 2021 regarding public records request submitted by Mrs. Kreitz. Email dated June 23rd, 2021 regarding public records request submitted by Mr. Schoonover. Email dated June 28th, 2021 regarding finance agenda submitted by Mr. Stoughton. Email dated June 28th, 2021 regarding board committee members submitted by Mr. Stoughton. Email dated June 28th, 2021 regarding public records request submitted by Mr. James. Email dated June 28th, 2021 regarding public records request submitted by Mr. Matlin. And finally, an email dated June 28th, 2021 regarding public records request submitted by Mrs. Teener.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the reports of city officials.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to receive and file reports of city officials. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Are there any communications?
There are 2. Notice to the legislative authority of a new liquor license to Bob Evans Restaurant LLC, doing business as Bob Evans Restaurant 48, located at 2157 Shoreway Drive, Lancaster, Ohio, submitted by the Ohio Division of Liquor Control. And finally, an email dated.
He was just saying that Bob Evans is going rotisserie style in his grave right now. Over there. That's okay. Go ahead.
Email dated June 21st, 2021 regarding public records request submitted by attorney Joseph R. Miller from Voorhees Legal Counsel.
Get your beer and your biscuits, Mr. Schoonover.
Mimosas at breakfast. Bob Evans.
That's right.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the communications.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to receive and file communications. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We do have a special presentation tonight. We're going to invite Mr. Burbage Cook up. He's the Executive Director of Connection West, and he's going to update us on what they have going on over with Connection West. So thank you for being here, Mr. Cook, and feel free to take it away.
First of all, thank you for your time. I just wanted to take this evening, take a few minutes just to explain who we are at Connection West, what our dreams are, and what we want to do in the community. So we are new to the table. To give you a quick history, Victory Hill Church purchased the former West Elementary in July of 2017. By 2018, we had our separate 501c3 status in place for Connection West, set up as a community center / benevolent center. So we focus on meeting today's needs as well as teaching the fundamental tools really required for generational change. We believe if we just give away unconditionally, we're enabling individuals and families. So we partner every outreach with a program. So we do monthly outreaches, and we currently host 62 programs at our facility, and we are looking to continue to further that. Our programs range from Sozo Pediatrics, a food pantry, mentoring classes for teens, as well as mentoring programs for homeless. We've actually been able to take 7 homeless here in Fairfield County, and they are actually funding their own apartments now, as well as their own job placement. Those 7 individuals have been able to maintain that for 6 months at this time. We're working with 3 others. We have 1 that will be getting an apartment next month. So we're just providing a sense of community and trying to work with that. That's honestly one reason I wanted to come before you guys is I'm a firm believer that transparency builds trust, and we want to love our city, and we want to make sure that we're here. So I was out on vacation for 3 weeks, and whenever I came back, Becky brought to my attention that there was some loitering taking place on our property. So thanks to Erica and Becky and all the city reps and city police department, we've been able to eliminate that. So we talked to our local neighbors. They pointed out after hours that we had a lot of Wi-Fi where they thought individuals were coming for their free phones. So we put a secure Wi-Fi password even for our guests, and that way, hey, it's only password enabled if they're inside of our facility. We also worked with a couple corporations to put exterior lighting at the facility, as well as get the letter into the city police department that, hey, this is private property. If you see any loitering after hours, hey, could you handle this? So Becky and I were just talking before the meeting. We haven't seen any loitering taking place during business or after business hours in the past 3 days, so we're pretty excited about that. We've also reached out to foundation dinners and foundation shelters. It's like, hey, how are you guys able to address any loitering problems that you have? Because like I said, I don't want anybody here to dislike us. We think we provide a very good outlet for low-income families, especially on the west side of Lancaster. So we want to see a problem, or if you guys see a problem, we want to take that head on. So I appreciate your time, and that's one that I just want to bring to the forefront, because I think all of us have seen that, and it's definitely an issue, and we wanted to address that. Other than that, outreaches, we do a lot. I think one that really pushed us to the forefront during the COVID-19 pandemic, when the governor first announced that he was going to be shutting down schools for 3 weeks, we reached out to our school system, and the superintendent's office got back with us in a couple hours, and they said they were going to move spring break, which would have been that 4th week, over into week 3, so that way, hey, our students wouldn't be out for 4 continuous weeks. But unfortunately, we wouldn't be able to provide any meals for that 3rd week. So by 2 o'clock that afternoon, we had 20 organizations from here in the city of Lancaster sitting around our conference table, and we formed a Care for Kids collaboration. Obviously, COVID took us all the way through the summer months for the school year before children were able to get back in. We were able to provide over 35,000 meals for families here inside the city of Lancaster. Then that also outreached into Sugar Grove and the Byrne Union School District, as well as down into Hocking County, Pickaway County, Perry County. So we're one of those organizations where COVID was actually good to us because we are new to the table. We're trying to figure this out as we go. And because of the community we live in and just the collaborative effort, we wouldn't be who we are without. We are a small entity compared to all the nonprofits here inside of the city of Lancaster. We're able to afford what we do off of our sublease agreements. So we have the after-school administration offices inside of our building. We have Holguin School of Learning. I mentioned Sozo Pediatrics, United Way's Free Tax Clinic, as well as the juvenile courts of Fairfield County host 4 classrooms that they rent off of us. Those lease agreements allow us to cover our utilities, and any outreach or benevolent activity, it's up to us as an organization to really solicit those funds to go out there. And we were able to do Operation Warm this past winter. We provided over 1,000 free winter jackets to any low-income family from birth to 18, and then our mobile food pantry is the newest one that's really taking off. But that puts me at just under 5 minutes. So if you guys have any questions, that is my cell phone listed there on the business card. Call me, leave a voicemail. Like I said earlier, I'm a firm believer transparency builds trust. So no matter what it is, don't hesitate to give me a call, and we'll make sure we tackle any issues that we see.
Thank you for being here, Mr. Cook. Does anyone have any questions this evening? Mayor.
No question, but I comment. I've had the pleasure of being over at Connection West a number of times in the last, 3.5 years since I've been mayor, and the resources and services that they are able to provide the community in the neighborhood are certainly very impressive, and it's a wonderful asset for the city of Lancaster.
I appreciate those words.
Great, thank you. Other questions or comments? Very good. Well, thank you for being here, Mr. Cook. Let's show them our appreciation for what they do here in our community, for being here tonight. Thank you. All Are there any petitions or memorials?
There are none to be presented.
During this time at City Council, we set time aside to allow the voters and taxpayers to address City Council on any item or issue they would like. If you'd like to address Lancaster City Council tonight, please come forward to the podium. Sign in with your name and address and state the same for the record. Please note that during this time, Lancaster City Council will not respond to your questions or comments, but may choose to do so at a later time during our meeting. In accordance with the rules of City Council, please keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Is there anyone who would like to address Lancaster City Council this evening? Okay, well, thank you all for being here tonight. Reports of standing committees.
Finance Committee meeting dated June 28, 2021, submitted by Mr. Stoughton. Code Enforcement and Zoning meeting dated June 7, 2021, submitted by Mr. Matlin. Public Works Committee meeting dated June 11, 2021, submitted by Mr. Schoonover. And finally, the Water Pollution Control meeting dated June 9, 2021, submitted by Mr. James.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the reports of standing committees.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to receive and file reports of standing committees. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Other reports of special committees.
There are none to be presented.
We have no public hearings this evening, so we'll move to the reading of resolutions, beginning with the third reading of temporary resolution 68-21.
A resolution approving and authorizing the mayor to submit to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, Lancaster's fiscal year 2021 Community Development Block, I went blank for a second, Block Grant Annual Action Plan and Statement of Objectives, offered by Mr. McDaniel, seconded by Mrs. Kreitz.
Mr. McDaniel.
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record resolution temporary number 68-21.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 68-21. Discussion, Mr. McDaniel?
Just real quick, the public hearing at the last council meeting on this just allows the mayor to submit this to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development and allow us to move forward with our block grant program as approved.
Very good. Further discussion on the motion to pass? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz? Yes. Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
Yes.
Motion to pass carries 9-0. Temporary resolution 69-21.
A resolution declaring the necessity of an election on the question of approving the passage of an ordinance to amend section 183.012, 183.013, and 183.02 of the codified ordinances of the city of Lancaster, Ohio, in order to increase the city income tax rate for parks and recreation to 0.25% continuing beginning January 1st, 2023, on earnings and income for parks and recreation as more fully set forth herein and declaring an emergency. Offered by Mr. Stoughton, seconded by Mrs. Bobbitt.
Mr. Stoughton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record resolution temporary 69-21.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 69-21. Discussion, Mr. Stoughton.
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to invite Superintendent Tharp up to, explain how they've been good stewards of the income tax money that they have received since this levy is put in place, 30 years ago?
34 years ago.
34 years ago,
Exact.
and then also explain what you're going to do with the additional 0.10 of 1%, so folks can hear it directly from you.
So I think we've been really good stewards of the money we've worked with for 34 years without an increase over that period of time. Right now, the levy would further the maintenance of what we presently have, the facilities we have. We're starting to lose good maintenance of. It still looks appealing, but it's not in tip-top shape. We'd like to bring that back. Roads and parking lots, always a huge concern for Parks and Recreation. It's a huge expense, huge out-of-pocket, and everybody that goes to Rising Park knows that's fallen behind the curve for us. The increase also is to actually bring something new to the city of Lancaster, new recreation facilities, new playgrounds in the neighborhood parks, which have been severely lacking for years. Hocking Park's a great example of that. The park we just built out on State Route 22, Hunter Park, $500,000 put by the citizens of Lancaster, Kiwanis Club, and other
funders. And it's an amazing what kind of an attendance we're getting at something so new and vibrant. It shows the need and the want the citizens of Lancaster have for better facilities, and that's what we want to bring them. We're looking at a lot of other things. There's been the talk of a splash pad. That's been kind of, when you put the word out there, what would you like to see as amenities in the city of Lancaster? The splash pad comes back as a clear number one. There's a need for more hiking and more bike paths, and all of that seems to rank high on the citizens of Lancaster's list, and we don't have the ability to bring that to them right now. And in 2020, there was never more of a need in and around Lancaster for our park system to shine and to be there for the citizens of Lancaster when they couldn't go anywhere else. We want to further what we already have and provide new recreation in the coming years. And right now we don't have the ability to do that, and this would give us that.
So I just want to throw another caveat out there, talk about why you want to make it permanent from a funding mechanism for larger projects.
So presently, as you know, Mr. Stoughton, every 5 years we have to go back after this levy. We vote again and we vote again, and it's passed, for 34 years in a row. We don't have the ability to leverage in a 5-year term and a 5-year leverage or a 5-year levy to go after something. If we wanted to build a splash pad at $1-2 million, we don't have the bonding ability to do that for Lancaster Park. So this would give us that mechanism, that ability to go after these bigger projects to really help foresee some of these bigger projects that you and I have talked about in the past.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Tharp. I appreciate giving you the opportunity to speak on behalf of this legislation. I completely support it. I think you've all been very good stewards of the public money and trust that you've been given, and I will totally support and back this project.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stone. Thank you, Mr. Tharp. Are there other questions around the table? Yes, Ms. Teener.
Well, I support the parks. I even clean up dog poop at the dog park that doesn't belong to my dog. That's how good I am. But I do have problems with a permanent levy. I think that with things like, I can give a little bit of an example. 2009, before I was even on city council, I had called Olivedale to have an 80th birthday party for my mom. Well, I was told I wasn't allowed to use Olivedale because I wasn't a member of Olivedale. Okay, well, because I just thought that belonged to the seniors. However, I have complained about that. And also when I went to the Parks Board meeting and had this long discussion, my name is on that I was there, but there doesn't seem to be a discussion that we had this discussion about Olivedale. I do not see it. I see that I was there. I see I was in attendance. I see in July that year that I had complained about the fireworks that were at Glasgow Park. But this is where I don't like a permanent levy, because once it's on, there's nothing else you can do. So when I had complained, then they put on, this is Olivedale, renting the multi-purpose room. The multi-purpose room is available for rent on non-activity evenings and weekends. The cost is $400 for non-Olivedale members and $250 for members. So does this mean that somebody that's a member that lives in Carroll or Lithopolis or something like that doesn't even live here in Lancaster, they can rent it for $250?
It sure does.
Because that to me doesn't make any sense. Why, if somebody's paying taxes here, our taxes, why that is able to happen. That's why I really don't like a permanent levy. You just can't hold people's feet to the fire. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. And I was asked to be at the annual meeting in 2018, still have the paperwork. They had, at that time, $418,178 in cash, assets, checks. That's what Olivedale had. We put in that year $221,499 out of parks money when they're sitting on over $400,000. And the next year was the same thing. And I just don't see how they can have this building. Tell people you can't rent it when, it's Lancaster people. I don't get that. Are they renting it out for $400 when they have their dances on Saturday nights?
So the membership of Olivedale has an advantage because of their membership. It's like belonging to a club. It doesn't say in your paperwork that they put $80,000 into the parking lot at Olivedale
Yeah,
in
but they've used
2019.
that for 40 years.
In 2019, they put in $80,000+ to redo a parking lot that's owned by the city of Lancaster. There's an advantage to that membership because they're giving back. There's no doubt that they, as a membership, the Olivedale seniors of Fairfield County are giving back their fair share to support that building.
Well, Mr. Tharp, that is not, because you were the one of the reasons, and the citizens, I came to this meeting because of what was going on at Olivedale. Plus, I have on this little notebook from when you and I sat at Deb's Corner, you were having problems with what was going on at
What year
Olivedale.
was
Now
that?
you're saying something different.
What year was that?
It was in 2019, I believe, because it was right when I went to go into the Parks meeting to complain, which it's not on the agenda. This is what I have a problem with.
So when you and I were going through that,
transparent.
we were going through that prior to Lancaster Parks and Recreation putting the Lancaster Parks and Recreation Health and Fitness Center in the basement of that building. When we did that, we took control of what happens in that building, in that facility. Olivedale seniors of Fairfield County have always put in a substantial amount of money back into the Olivedale building that's owned by the city of Lancaster, Lancaster Parks and Recreation. So is there an advantage to being a member of the Olivedale seniors? Yeah. Is the building rented out much? No. Can it be rented out by anybody? It sure can, just like Alley Park.
If they don't have something going on and they're making money in there. The discussions that you and I have had on this over the past 4 years or whatever have just not been, I just am not going to support a permanent levy. This is the reason, because you can say one thing to get it to pass and then you can go do something else. Because who's to say that you can just, I don't know. And for them to pay for the parking lot, that's great, but how long have they used that parking lot? 40-some years? And they're putting money into it finally? And I do believe also when Meals on Wheels was in there, we were paying their phone bill for some reason. When they moved out, we were still paying their phone bill.
Yeah, the funds weren't transferred in a timely manner, sure.
Why were we doing that anyway? That shouldn't have even been a thing. So, but I'm just saying, I like our parks, I really do. I just think a permanent levy, that's why I said go for a 10-year. I'm okay with that.
So if
but-
the citizens of Lancaster don't like what they're seeing out of Lancaster Parks and Recreation, they have a recourse to come back and change the direction of Lancaster Parks and Recreation. That's through the mayor. The mayor appoints the park board. A park board member changes every year, and there's 3 park board members for the city of Lancaster. So if the citizens of Lancaster do not like the way the park board is going and the direction the Lancaster Parks and Recreation are going, all they have to do is make the appeal to the mayor. The mayor changes out a park board member, and in 2 years, you have different control of what happens with Lancaster Parks and Recreation. So there is an oversight and an ability to change the direction of parks.
Further discussion?
So, but you can come back to me. I'll let somebody else go.
Is there further discussion on the motion to pass? Okay.
Well, I do if people are not, if
Yeah.
nobody's going to say anything. I have more.
Go ahead.
Last January, the beginning of last January, I was approached by a gentleman that had a concern about some things that were going on with parks. I reached out to Carrie Woody. I thought she was park president. I didn't hear from her. In the meantime, I was able to go out and do my own investigation of what I was told was going on, took pictures. Finally talked to Carrie. She said Charles Elsey was president. Talked to Charles Elsey. I asked for an executive session with the Parks Board, with this individual that came to me about something. They never honored that. This was before COVID. So, this should have happened. I ended up meeting with Paul, the individual, and I had Don McDaniel come to this meeting because I wanted to have a witness. Never heard what's going on. I just really, really do not agree with having a permanent levy. I don't think you can hold people's feet to the fire. And if you're saying that, the Parks Board, I think they all 3 need to be removed and replaced. And I'm going to tell you that right now, Mayor. I really do. After what happened last year, nope. And I couldn't get Charles to, honor what I asked, and that is not okay for a citizen and a council member to not be honored that.
There was an investigation done.
But we never got to speak. I requested that, and that never happened. And even like with the minutes, when I brought up the stuff about Olivedale, there's nothing in the minutes about it. There's not one thing I can find in the minutes. It just says I was there. So those minutes are incomplete. So this tells me right here, a permanent levy from this Parks Department is not what we should be doing. I will be voting no tonight to put it on, and I will be voting no at the polls. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Teener. Further, yes, Mr. Mallon.
It's unfortunate that you're letting your voice here take out personal issues with Mr. Tharp. I think he's done an amazing job since he's been there, and working within the fire department for years before Mr. Tharp was here, and seeing the condition of Olivedale prior to when they had all their problems, and then when Meals on Wheels moved out, and then the city parks took it over, and how much work they've done to make the building better. I think things are better all around for the parks. I look at what's happening downtown every Friday night now when we're back to normal. I look at the discussions we've had over about Merritt Park, and they need the permanent levy for the leverage to be able to bond money out to do more for the parks, and that's the simple fact about it. So, to have another voice of a positive, that's me. I'm fully for this, and I think you've done a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mallon. Further discussion on the motion to pass tonight? Yes, Mr. James.
Just real quick, you've got so many more facilities now than you had in the past that you have to take care of. More mowing, more of the bike path, and you're getting ready to expand it even more. I've enjoyed the bike path a lot and utilized it a lot, and so have my grandchildren. And once again, I appreciate your efforts, and I will be voting for it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. James. Ms. Bobbitt.
Thank you. Thank you for being here this evening. I will have to say, a permanent tax, you and I had a discussion, that does scare me, but one of the things that you and I discussed, you looked at me and you said, Melody, you want a splash pad. Melody, you want different facilities at the park. I'm just telling you to bond these facilities. This is what you told me, to bond these facilities, and to get this for the Lancaster citizens, it has to be a permanent levy. After you and I talked, I understand fully why it has to be a permanent levy, and that's why I stand behind this. The Parks Department, the only, I think it was I was looking for my presentation. Back in 2000, and I think it was 2008, myself and Mitch Overton went to the State House, and we received the monies from the state to redo our neighborhood parks. That was the first time that they'd been redone in like 40 years.
Yes.
There was equipment at those parks when I was a child. Yeah, when you was a child? Okay. So, those were the only big monies that we've ever had, to come in for our neighborhood parks. When I go out to the new park on Route 22, and as you say, those monies came from citizens and from youth groups, from groups. Yeah. That park's beautiful. I'd like to see that at every one of the neighborhood parks. I'm behind this all the way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bobbitt. Further, yes, Mr. Hall.
I'm sympathetic with Mrs. Teener's comments, but I would say that often the difference between those communities that are doing well and those communities that struggle have to do with the recreational opportunities and the beauty of the cities that they operate in or that people live in. I think our parks are an important economic engine, and if we don't support this levy, it's going to compromise the future of the city. This parks levy is really important, and I support it completely.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Further discussion on the motion to pass?
I just have one final.
Yes. Anyone else before we go to Mr. Stoughton? Mr. Stoughton?
Thank you. We have two different issues here, Mrs. Teener. If these things in fact occurred, this is an administrative function of the board, and Mr. Tharp as a leader that I think you address with the board. If there are no minutes of you being a part of a meeting then that's problematic, and I think you take that up with the park board. I want to go back to the funding mechanism. There was a time that the parks in the city of Lancaster, I think, received about 6% of the general fund, which is a pretty significant amount of money. So that going away, I believe that's when the park levy first came on board and passed 34 years ago, to be exact. And from that point forward, we've never collected anything more than 0.015 of 1% for the Parks Department. That being said, you know, have been good stewards, but there have been times the city council, on my watch, a couple times where we've appropriated from our 320 capital improvement monies to basically do repairs at Olivedale. I think we've done a couple things, maybe at a swimming pool over the 18 years I've sat in this chair. And I know that has to be terribly frustrating. So setting aside the administrative issue, this is the right thing to do for the parks for the long-term viable future. And Mel, to your point, you say you want a splash pad. They absolutely need the ability to say we have a permanent income stream to basically be able to bond out a project such as that. And imagine if, the park board got to the point where they were able to do the amortization where you could actually bring something new like that to this city. It would be amazing. I think it's basically arming you with new tools in the toolbox that, in my opinion, are very, very, very important. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr.
Appreciate it.
Stoughton. Further comments, motion to pass. I'll just mention briefly from not a support or opposition to the legislation standpoint, but from a function standpoint. The function of this council is to assess whether the need that has been presented to it is worthy of being set before the voters for consideration. It's not really the function of this council to allow the personal things that have happened to impact that decision. It is, in fact, up to the voters, and all that we're doing is setting this in front of the voters, and they will decide whether or not the parks deserve a permanent levy or not. And so I think understanding the function of what's happening here is really, really important. I sense support around the table. I'll limit my comments to that and ask that the clerk call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
No.
Temporary Resolution 69-21 passes 8-1.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tharp. We now have second reading on a series of resolutions, beginning with Temporary Resolution 76-21.
A resolution to appropriate from the unencumbered balance and to amend a certificate of appropriations with the county auditor in the LDOT Fund 2008 for the purchase of a Crafco Patch 2 hot mastic machine offered by Mr. Schoonover, seconded by Mr. Stoughton.
Mr. Schoonover.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the third reading of temporary resolution 7621.
Second?
A motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the third reading of Temporary Resolution 76-21. Discussion, Mr. Schoonover.
No, thanks.
Discussion on the motion to suspend. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz? Yes. Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
Yes.
Motion to suspend carries 9-0. Mr. Schoonover.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council pass and gross and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 7621.
Second?
A motion and a second to pass and gross and enter upon the written record Temporary Resolution 76-21. Discussion, Mr. Schoonover.
Just real briefly, we had a in-depth conversation about this at the last finance meeting. So just to kind of summarize, for the audience, this machine is something that the street department already rents on a yearly basis. When they get the rental free and they pay X amount of dollars for the supplies for that. So when they actually buy the machine, the cost of the supplies goes down tremendously, almost like $1 a pound. So we did the cost analysis. We discussed it at the last meeting, that this machine would basically pay for itself within 2.5, 3 years by bringing it in-house. So I think it's a win-win across the board, and it's something that we use quite a bit already and will continue to use with street repair and maintenance.
Thank you very much. Further discussion on the motion to pass. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbit?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz? Yes. Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
Yes.
Temporary Resolution 76-21 passes 9-0. Temporary Resolution 77-21.
A resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to advertise for bids for the Zane Alley Sewer Lining Project, offered by Mr. James and seconded by Mr. Hall.
Mr. James?
Yes, just for the benefit of the audience, this Zane Alley project's been ongoing for quite a while, where they've found a lot of areas that have actually collapsed, and this needs to get done fairly quickly. Mr. President, at this time, I would like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the third reading of temporary resolution numbered 77-21.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the third reading of temporary resolution 77-21. Discussion, Mr. James?
Nothing further, thank you.
Discussion on the motion to suspend. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbit?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz? Yes. Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yep.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
Yes.
Motion to suspend carries 9-0. Mr. James?
Yes, Mr. President, this time I'd like to make a motion that council pass and gross and enter upon our written record temporary resolution numbered 77-21.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass and gross and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 77-21. Discussion, Mr. James?
No thanks.
Discussion on the motion to pass. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbit?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz? Yes. Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
Yes.
Temporary resolution 77-21 passes 9-0. Temporary resolution 78-21.
A resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to advertise for bids for the combined sewer overflow 1029 CSO 1029 reconstruction project, offered by Mr. James and seconded by Mrs. Teener.
Mr. James?
Just briefly, once again, this is the separation of our sanitary sewer from our wastewater, from our stormwater, and it's out on 6th Avenue, right before you get to the bike path. And at this time, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the third reading of temporary resolution number 78-21.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the third reading of temporary resolution 78-21. Discussion, Mr. James.
Nothing further, thank you.
Discussion on the motion to suspend. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbit?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz? Yes. Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
Yes.
Motion to suspend carries 9-0. Mr. James.
Yes, Mr. President, this time I would like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon our written record temporary resolution numbered 78-21.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to pass and gross and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 78-21. Discussion, Mr. James.
Nothing further, thank you.
Discussion on the motion to pass. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbit?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz? Yes. Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
Yes.
Temporary resolution 78-21 passes 9-0. Temporary resolution 79-21.
A resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to advertise for bids for the Wiley Road Water Loop Project, offered by Mr. James and seconded by Mr. Hall.
Mr. James.
Yes, we've had some extensive discussions about this in previous Finance Committee meetings, and this is out near the industrial park and will give us a lot more capability to help develop that area. So at this time, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the third reading of temporary resolution number 79-21.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the third reading of temporary resolution 79-21. Mr. James? Further
Nothing
discussion?
further, thank you.
Further discussion on the motion to suspend. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbit?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz? Yes. Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover? Mr.
Yes.
Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
Yes.
Motion to suspend carries 9-0. Mr. James.
Thank you, Mr. President. Now I would like to make a motion that council pass and gross and enter upon our written record temporary resolution numbered 79-21.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass and gross and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 79-21. Discussion, Mr. James.
Nothing further, thank you.
Discussion on the motion to pass. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbit?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz? Yes. Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover? Mr.
Yes.
Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
Yes.
Temporary resolution 79-21 passes 9-0. Temporary resolution 80-21.
A resolution authorizing the mayor to prepare and submit an application to participate in the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency Water Pollution Control Loan Fund Program and to execute contracts as required. Offered by Mr. James and seconded by Mrs. Teener.
Mr. James?
Yes, this gives us the opportunity to go after a lot of low-interest loans for some of the improvements that we're getting ready to make. So at this time, Mr. President, I would like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the second and third readings of temporary resolution number 80-21.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the third reading of temporary resolution 80-21. Discussion, Mr. James.
Nothing further, thank you.
Discussion on the motion to suspend. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbit?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz? Yes. Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Motion to suspend passes 9-0. Mr. James.
At this time, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon a written record temporary resolution numbered 80-21.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 80-21. Discussion, Mr. James.
Nothing further, thank you.
Discussion on the motion to pass. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbit?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz? Yes. Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover? Mr.
Yes.
Stoughton? And
Yes.
Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Temporary resolution 80-21 passes 9-0. Temporary resolution 81-21.
A resolution agreeing to sponsor the Fetters Run OUL Stream Restoration Project by participating in the Water Resource Restoration Sponsor Program in conjunction with the Upper Hocking WPCF Upgrade Water Pollution Control Loan Program. Offered by Mr. James and seconded by Mr. Hall.
Mr. James?
Yes, just as a little bit of a clarification, this is the opportunity to take some of the money that you pay for interest on some of the big loans for the upgrade at the Upper Hocking plant, and will get us an opportunity to, on the Fetters Run area, to revitalize that area, to do some changes in the actual runoff and things there. So this is really, I have to attribute this to Miss Denise Cruz. She keeps going after this money and just won't quit. So that this time, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the third reading of temporary resolution numbered 81-21.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the third reading of temporary resolution 81-21. Further discussion, Mr. James?
Nothing further?
Discussion on the motion to suspend. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbit?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz? Yes. Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Motion to suspend carries 9-0. Mr. James.
Mr. President, at this time, I would like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon a written record temporary resolution number 81-21.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 81-21. Discussion, Mr. James.
Nothing further?
Discussion on the motion to pass. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbit?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz? Yes. Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Temporary resolution 81-21 passes 9-0. We now have first reading on a series of resolutions, beginning with temporary resolution 83-21.
A resolution to appropriate from the unencumbered balance and to amend the certificate of appropriations with the county auditor in the general fund 1001. Offered by Mr. Stoughton, seconded by Mrs. Kreitz.
Mr. Stoughton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the second and third reading of Resolution Temporary 8321, please.
Second?
Double second, like that.
I got both of them. Yes, indeed. We have a motion and 2 seconds to suspend the rules and waive the second and third reading of temporary resolution 83-21. Mr. Stoughton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm asking for suspension tonight because we have a 3-week break and then a 4-week break in our scheduling. So I want to dispense with this tonight. What this is really a $2,000 participation from the general fund along with monies from all the utilities to basically determine ownership of some land where we actually have a lot of city utilities running through. We believe it's canal land owned by the state, but we want to get that ownership cleaned up and do the obviously make sure we have legal control of the area where utilities are running through. So to clean up our docket, I'm asking for suspension this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Stoughton. Further discussion on the motion to suspend. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbit?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz. Yes. Mr. Hall.
Yes.
Mr. James.
Yes.
Mr. Matlin.
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel.
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover.
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton.
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Motion to suspend carries 9-0. Mr. Stoughton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record Resolution Temporary 8321, please.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 83-21. Discussion, Mr. Stoughton.
No, thank you.
Discussion on the motion to pass. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbit.
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz. Yes. Mr. Hall.
Yes.
Mr. James.
Yes.
Mr. Matlin.
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel.
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover. Mr.
Yes.
Stoughton.
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Temporary resolution 83-21 passes 9-0. Temporary resolution 84-21.
A resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into an agreement for a rare study of water and wastewater rates, capacity fees, and septage receiving fees. Offered by Mr. James and seconded by Mrs. Teener.
Mr. James.
Yes, as we discussed in the Finance Committee meeting, this is the opportunity for us to take a look at all of our rates and what we have coming up as far as some of the improvements that we're going to make to those particular infrastructures. And so, Mr. President, at this time, I would like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the second and third reading of temporary resolution 84-21.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the second and third reading of temporary resolution 84-21. Further discussion, Mr. James?
No thanks.
Discussion on the motion to suspend. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbit.
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz. Yes. Mr. Hall.
Yes.
Mr. James.
Yes.
Mr. Matlin.
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel.
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover.
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton.
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Motion to suspend carries 9-0. Mr. James.
Yes, Mr. President, at this time, I would like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon our written record temporary resolution numbered 84-21.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 84-21. Discussion, Mr. James?
Nothing further, thank you.
Thank you. Discussion on the motion to pass. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbit.
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz. Yes. Mr. Hall.
Yes.
Mr. James.
Yes.
Mr. Matlin.
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel.
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover.
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton.
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Temporary resolution 84-21 passes 9-0. Temporary resolution 85-21.
A resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement in order to facilitate Project Ruby in furtherance of economic development, offered by Mr. McDaniel and seconded by Mrs. Kreitz.
Mr. McDaniel.
Yes, Mr. President, I would like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the second and third reading of resolution temporary numbered 85-21.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the second and third reading of temporary resolution 85-21. Discussion, Mr. McDaniel?
Not at this time.
Discussion on the motion to suspend. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbit.
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz. Yes. Mr. Hall.
Yes.
Mr. James.
Yes.
Mr. Matlin.
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel.
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover.
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton.
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Motion to suspend carries 9-0. Mr. McDaniel.
Yes, Mr. President, I would like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record resolution temporary numbered 85-21.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 85-21. Mr. McDaniel.
Yeah, I think the preamble of this resolution pretty much says it would allow the mayor to enter into agreements to move this project forward.
Very good. Further discussion on the motion to pass. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbit.
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz. Yes. Mr. Hall.
Yes.
Mr. James.
Yes.
Mr. Matlin.
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel.
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover.
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton.
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Temporary resolution 21 passes 9-0. Temporary resolution 86-21.
A resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into a contract for construction of the South Water Plant Concentrate Line Improvement Project. Offered by Mr. James and seconded by Mr. Hall.
Mr. James.
Yes, this was discussed once again in the Finance Committee meeting as to the need for us to open this line up and be able to enjoy the full capacity of that particular facility. And, Mr. President, at this time, I would like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the second and third reading of temporary resolution number 86-21.
Second.
Thought I had you as the second. Yeah.
I did too, but it was
Am I
he
not?
changed it during the meeting. He stated that he would have Mr. Hall second it. So
Did I do that?
If we change it back, just tell me who.
Did you already change it?
I already changed it
To Ms. Teener?
to Mr. Hall.
To Mr. Hall?
You know, we could do two double seconds.
You're okay with the second here, Mr. Hall?
Absolutely, I'm happy.
We have a
I just
motion.
erased my name on this paper.
A motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the second and third reading of temporary resolution 86-21. Discussion, Mr. James.
Nothing further, thank you.
Discussion on the motion to suspend. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbit?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz? Yes. Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover? Mr.
Yes.
Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Motion to suspend carries 9-0. Mr. James.
Yes, Mr. President, now I would like to make a motion that council, pass, engross, and enter upon our written record temporary resolution numbered 86-21.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 86-21. Discussion, Mr. James.
Nothing further, thank you.
Discussion on the motion to pass. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbit?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz? Yes. Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Temporary resolution 86-21 passes 9-0. Are there any further resolutions to come before Lancaster City Council this evening? If not, we'll move to the reading of ordinances, beginning with the third reading of temporary ordinance 17-21.
An ordinance to amend section 183.012, 183.013, and 183.02 of the codified ordinances of the city of Lancaster, Ohio, in order to increase the city income tax rate for parks and recreation to 0.25%, continuing beginning January 1st, 2023, on earnings and income for parks and recreation as more fully set forth herein, and declaring an emergency. Offered by Mr. Stoughton and seconded by Mrs. Bobbit.
Mr. Stoughton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to make a motion that council lay on the table ordinance temporary 1721, please.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to lay on the table temporary ordinance 17-21. A motion to lay on the table is non-debatable. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbit.
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz. Yes. Mr. Hall.
Yes.
Mr. James.
Yes.
Mr. Matlin.
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel.
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover.
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton.
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Motion to lay on the table carries 9-0. Are there any further ordinances to come before Lancaster City Council this evening? If not, I assume we're not going to take action on the tabled legislation we just laid on the table. Is there unfinished business tonight? Is there any new business tonight? Well, I'll just briefly make mention that I have the honor and opportunity to serve as the Vice President of the Lancaster Fairfield County 4th of July celebration, and we are back this year. I'm very excited, though we are on the 5th. And there are a couple of different reasons why we're on the 5th. One, we were asked to move to the 5th by our fireworks vendor, who has a multitude of shows, as everyone is coming back this year, and wanted to be able to dedicate his resource to our show on the 5th. And so we're so appreciative of Kenny and all he does with Hamburg Fireworks / Jerry's Fireworks to make this show one of the best I think you'll find anywhere every single year. The other reason is we don't want to have a parade on the middle of Sunday during worship services, which are churches all along the parade route. And so we are on July 5th, 10 a.m. The parade steps off from the fairgrounds and will follow its normal parade route up Columbus, up Main, and then back up Broad Street. We also then will have activities all day long. Food, rides, concessions, DJ, live music at 8 p.m. with Bad Influence, all happening at the fairgrounds with, again, the greatest fireworks show I think you'll find anywhere at 10 p.m. Off of the fairgrounds, grounds, and Mount Pleasant. I will make mention of really just two quick things. One, this is a private event. No city dollars are expended for this event. Many people assume that the city of Lancaster puts this on. Oftentimes that's because of the people who are involved in the committee and in making it happen. But the city of Lancaster is a partner, but they are not expending any dollars with the 4th of July committee or the celebration. The other thing that I'll just briefly mention is everything is more expensive this year than it was 2 years ago when we had the last celebration in 2019. Therefore, you can park anywhere you can find that's legally parking area outside of the fairgrounds for free and walk into the fairgrounds for free. However, if you choose to park within the fairgrounds, the way we pay for this private show that we put on for the citizens of Lancaster and frankly counties all across Ohio who come up as a part of it, it's $15 this year to park inside the fairgrounds. That is a slight bump from where we've been in the past, but everything is costing us more and we need to be able to cover the costs as we continue forward. And so you can go to the website. I don't know what it is, but just Google 4th of July in Lancaster and you will find it. it, and we hope everyone will come out on the 5th as we continue to emerge into our next normal, as we continue to celebrate and come out of this pandemic, and most importantly, I think, as we continue to celebrate our independence and freedom this 4th of July. So I invite everyone out to be a part. It's going to be a blast. With that, is there other new business this evening? Yes, Ms. Bobbitt.
Just real quick, I want to thank the 18-some volunteers that came out last week and cleaned the parking lot down by, I think the address is 111, it's the city parking lot, 111 Broad Street. It looks beautiful. They worked until we got it all finished. Weeds, trim shrubs, it looks great.
Great.
I thank them.
Thank you, Ms. Bobbitt. Further new business tonight? If not, we'll ask that the clerk read our schedule of upcoming meetings.
Upcoming meetings, the next meeting is July 19th. The meeting following is August 9th. Both meetings take place here at 6:30 PM in council chambers. Upcoming committee meetings for the next 30 days. I'll mention ahead of time, all meetings will take place at the City Hall 1897 conference room, but the Finance Committee. So Water Pollution Control, July 14th at 8 AM. Economic Development, July 15th at 7:30 AM. IT Telecom, July 16th at 7:45 AM. And finally, the Finance, July 19th at 6 PM, which will take place here in council chambers.
Thank you very much. I'll just note that, as Mr. Stoughton has commented, we do have a couple of breaks coming up, 3 weeks until our next meeting, and then 3 or 4 after that meeting in July is sort of our summer break. There's a lot going on right now, and I'll just mention that while we don't expect to have to call a special meeting, should we need to do so, I hope you'll be able to make yourself available over the next several weeks so we can continue to ensure the business of the city moves forward. With that, are there any bills?
There are two. PNC, payable to MNCO, $283.60 for publication of legislation, and PNC for Performa, $596 for resolution paper,
It's got a
Miss-
little special paper.
the red line paper.
I got you. All
It
right.
used to be lead and very much twice that price.
Mr. Schoonover.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that we pay the bills.
I second that motion.
We have a motion and a second to pay the bills. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Is there a need for an executive session this evening? Seeing none, a motion to adjourn is in order.
Mr. President, I would like to make that motion that we adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Thank you all very much. Please remember to sign your legislation and have a very happy and safe 4th of July. We are adjourned.
Can't you just draw red lines on